How I got out of $100,000 in debt. Let me repeat that. How I got out of $100,000 in debts. This is for Black women. It's not me. I'm going to tell you about April. April's going to tell us about how she got out of $100,000 in debt. If
In
you're
less than
in
two
debt,
years.
in
It was
less than
less than 2 years.
two years. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you are in debt, you are a Black woman, you need to watch this conversations because we're going to learn about Prill and what she has done to get out of $100,000 in debt in 2 years. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist of over 20 years. As I can't even believe it, 20 years, yes. And I'm a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co-host with Marissa Price of the second annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women coming up May 16th. And I'm excited to have Prill with us. Prill is our MC again for the
Yes.
second year.
So
Her voice
excited.
is like velvet. It's a
Oh,
beautiful voice. So, Prill, can you introduce yourself, please?
yeah, sure thing. So, hello everyone. I've been on your channel. This is my third or fourth time, Dr. Kamani.
So you're
But
always welcome.
today, as you mentioned, I'm coming on here as somebody. I'm doing a debt confession. But a little bit about me. I am a voice and a coach for Black women who are ready for all things boundaries, balance, and joy. And you know what, Dr. Kamani? I'm out here. Look, I'm just out here living an unapologetically liberated life. Okay.
Yes.
I'm doing
Yes.
me.
And where are you at, Prill? Tell the world where you
So, okay, I'm at my new little condo in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
are. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So she has
Yes.
liberated herself from the United States and she is now in Mexico. So, Prill, we talked before about there's so much shame associated with being in debt. So, can we talk a little bit about what was the shame you had about being in debt? Let's start there.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I guess that when I did start feeling the shame was not necessarily when I was in like horrible debt the first time, because, and Dr. Kamani, you remember these days, you come on campus, like you're there for your orientation, right?
Mhm.
New student orientation. They have the folders, they've got, oh, do you want a t-shirt for a credit card? Do you want some pizza? Whatever. And I had no idea about credit. I was raised in a household where they called them like charge plates, back then. And you just paying cash. Like that's it. You
Okay.
just paying cash.
Uh-huh.
Credit cards, are just like the worst. But I didn't understand what credit was. So
Mhm.
here I am. As some of you may know, if you've heard my story, I got pregnant at 16, had my son at 17. We went off to college at 18. So
Mhm.
here I am like, well, I'm working, closing at the local video store. I'm doing work study, tutoring, things like that. So if they're going to give me a credit card, it's like what,
Mhm.
$1,500, $500, that went a long way, especially
Mhm.
when we're talking about the mid to late 90s.
Mhm.
And I had no idea. Like I knew I was supposed to pay it back, but
Mhm.
like I just didn't understand it. But what I did understand, okay, this is before caller ID. I knew the bill collector when they were calling. They just had a certain ring.
Ah. So you
So I'm
try to
like,
avoid it. You're
right,
avoiding.
I'm not answering that call. But it wasn't necessarily shame,
Hmm.
because I didn't understand it. So fast forward to like 20, what was that? So it'd be like 2021, maybe like fall of 2021. And
Mhm.
I'm just, setting my intentions and things for the following year. And I'm
Mhm.
like, you know what? I have some serious credit card debt, like serious credit card debt,
Mhm.
6-figure credit card debt. And like Dr. Kwani, you know what it was for, but what I'm not gonna do is say like why I got into that debt,
Mhm.
because we have hierarchies of like, oh,
Mhm.
that's okay. That
Mhm.
type of debt is okay. And I'm not talking about a home or things
Mhm.
like that. I'm talking about if you have high interest
Mhm.
debt, or even if you're owing people money, if
Mhm.
you use it for good things, then that makes more sense. So
Mhm.
for me, it doesn't matter what it was used for. The fact was I was sitting with all of this debt. And it
And you
doesn't
said
matter.
6 figures of credit card debt,
Yes, of
right? Okay.
high interest
Oh.
credit card debt,
Oh.
right? And I didn't even know how much my interest rate was. But here I am, just in like a low point. There were other things going on in my life that,
Mhm.
just had me feeling low. And then I'm thinking back to, this is where you are right now. At that time I would have been what, like 43-ish, 44. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I thought we were past this, you know?
Mm,
And again, it's just like all of these man, thinking about church, like how we're raised in church. You're supposed to be a good steward over your money. And we
mm,
hear all these different parables about what did they say? Like like a hole in your pocket or something like that. Or again, there's this good debt and bad debt.
mm,
And not to mention how in what high esteem that we in the Black community hold our like good credit and things like that. But it was shame as a paralytic, and it was not just in this instance, but in
mm.
other areas of my life. But I'm telling you, I just felt like I had to hide
Yeah.
something.
And
It
I
just
just
felt
felt
like
like here I
everyone
go
knew.
again. Like
Yeah.
this happened to me when I was in my early teens
Right.
or
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
20s, right?
Late
Like I
teens,
was
early
a dad and
20s.
had to avoid, right? And
Yeah.
now I'm in my 40s, like how to end up back here again.
Yeah. And it was the same feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it wasn't okay. Because even then, when I was in the credit card debt, I was paying for daycare, I was buying diapers, like we were surviving. But
Yeah.
even still, it still brings you back to just that low feeling. And when we're older, when we're younger, okay, well, we didn't know any better. And when
Mm-hmm.
you know better, you do better. But
Right.
so what is the reason why I'm still in the same place and I know better? And obviously, I haven't done better if I'm here
Right,
again.
right,
Yeah.
right. Because before it was more survival. You had to take care of
Right.
you and your son, survival. Then you get in
Right.
your 40s, like, wait a minute, I know better. Why am I not doing better?
Right, right.
Uh-huh. And
And
how
you
did
s
you work through
oh,
that?
right.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry,
No,
how
go
did
ahead.
you work through that? Kind of like, I should know better.
Um, well, again, I think the reason why I had the debt helped me a little bit, but it's just, that's when you start questioning and looking back and start running the tally. Well, if I didn't do this, how much did I spend on these vacations? How
Mhm.
much did, like just all types of
Kind of beating
things that
yourself
were
up.
right and regret. And
Yeah.
once you start opening that door, as we were talking about earlier this week about survival mode,
Mhm.
those same emotions come back. Like
Yeah.
your brain is having this response.
Mhm.
And I would avoid like looking at my statements,
Mhm.
avoid like the emails would come through.
Mhm.
I paid on time,
Okay.
but I knew that my little, $100 here, 1,000, like whatever it was not putting a dent in it. But the first thing that I did,
Mhm.
and as we were talking before here, this is the most important thing that I could say that helped me, was the fact that I like acknowledged, like, okay, I have this debt. I'm not, looking backwards. I can't sit here beating myself up. I'm going to use this energy and this, this all the thought that I'm putting into, because it was taking up so much like room. Like I
Mhm.
can't even, I would be sick sometimes.
Ooh,
Like just
ruminating about it.
yes, just like that credit card debt is there. This debt is
Mhm.
there. And again, it's not the why, it was just really the what. And the first thing that I did was, again, like, okay, this is not what we're about to do. We are not about to keep looking backwards. We're not about to keep beating ourselves up. Do the best we can to, let go of these things. But
Mhm.
the hardest thing out of all
Mhm.
of this was when I sat down and looked at my bank statements. I went online. I said, I'm going to do 90 days. So I went back 90 days, all of the things that I was spending. And I
Mhm.
mean, like copy paste into a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Um, I had no idea what my bills were. And this is going back to some money trauma that I
Mhm.
had, not only when, my son was a toddler, but after I got divorced, when I
Mhm.
left with nothing.
Mhm.
It was feast or famine for me. It's either
Mhm.
I had enough to pay my bills, which has
Mhm.
been, a minute now.
Mhm.
But before that, I could tell you every single penny that was in there. I was like obsessively looking at my checking account because,
So you went to the extreme from
right, yeah,
avoidance to like over extreme.
totally. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not, I have enough money there. Now I would periodically, check for fraud or just things like that. But as far as how much money was coming in and how much money was going out, I had no idea. But
Mm,
that made me sick to my stomach to like
mm,
have to do that, to work to work my nerve up to even do that. So
yeah.
before you can even, as we were talking, like it really is about getting your mind right. And unfortunately, because there is so much shame, there is so much guilt, there is so much of us like being in a place of regret and just beating ourselves up. It's hard to even think about like what the next steps are.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you have to give yourself grace, and you have to, it's almost like when you're in a relationship, right?
Mhm.
Because I did say this. I was like, look, I want to have an intimate relationship with my money. Like right now, or not right now, but like back then, I knew of my relationship with my money, right? I knew my paycheck was going to hit. I knew that, the auto debit bills, whatever.
Mhm.
But I didn't know it intimately. Like we were, nighttime friends or whatever, like friends with like we have like no, like I didn't know when and it was a true avoidance. And I think when we step back and look at how many of these things, our habits, our nuances, some of our traumas, how they show up in all types of areas of our
Yeah.
life. Like we talk about work. If
Mhm.
you are somebody who is non-confrontational at work, or you're people pleasing at work, or you're working 50 hours a week and some people ain't even working, in 2025, like there's other areas of
Mhm.
your life where that shows up. So because I was working on some of those other areas, I'm looking for the things that I've been avoiding. And like my finances was one of them. And then, like I said, I just made my payments. Of course, I made as much as I could.
Mhm.
Um, but I had no idea. I had no idea what the interest, I had no idea what was coming in, what was going out. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit.
Mhm.
So you talked about the avoidance with money. And I think many, 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 many of us, many Black women, have issues of avoidance with money for a
Mhm.
number of reasons. It may have been how we were brought up. It could be that we've been told not to focus on money. It could be a
Mhm.
whole host of different issues. So when we think about avoidance, when we think about psychologically, short term, it can help us. Like, oh, good. I don't have to look at that statement. The statement came in. I don't have to look at it. I'm gonna focus on something else. I'm gonna do it. So you feel better. Your anxiety goes down. But then the longer you take to look at it, the longer you have the anxiety. So
Mhm.
are you able to share, Pro? Because you said that the avoidance of looking at your money can parallel avoidance in other areas of your life. Can you just share with us just briefly about ways that there was that parallel for you?
Oh, for sure. And in my very first YouTube video that I made, 5 things I wish another Black woman would have told me before I quit that good job.
Okay.
I talked about how I realized that I didn't know who I was. That
Mm.
is something that, because I was a very like awkward teenager, like I said, I got pregnant at 16. Now we're talking about all of just this church trauma and being discommunicated and having to sit in that back row. We called it like the sinner's pew, having to sit back there. Um, for me, I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I'm just going to throw myself into being, the best mother that I can be. And also these people that told me I was never going to graduate from high school,
Oh,
I'm about
what?
to show them, right? If you keep this baby, you're not going to be able to do anything in life. You're not going to be able to graduate from high school. So I
Mm.
had kind of this like chip on my shoulder. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I'm going to show them. So I'm someone's mother, then I'm a student, then I'm, a researcher, a grad student, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
an employee. My son is older. He's independent. Now he's driving. Okay, well, now I'm just going to start working more. Now I'm about to volunteer for all of these different boards and, keep throwing myself into work. So when I left corporate,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that corporate was a problem, but it wasn't like the problem. The
Okay.
problem was I didn't know who I was. I
Ah.
was avoiding, even though I didn't know like what would happen if I went down that path, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so scary. It was just like, yeah, no, I'm just going to, like I was that one. It's so sad, but I turned into my Aunt Margaret, who she never sat down. She would be like, do you need more of this? Do you need more of that? Do you need like, and I used to say too, like, it's okay. They'd be like, no, sit down, eat your food. I'd be like, that's okay. I'm a mother. I eat cold food. But
Oh
yeah.
no.
So
Oh.
it's just like things like that. I just stayed so busy. I didn't realize at the time that I was avoiding an impending identity crisis. But I
Mm.
knew that it was just easier for me to stay busy. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm just going to work on this area. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to work on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start socializing more. I'm going to work on this. But when
Mhm.
it came to like that deep self work, I
Mhm.
just, started throwing myself into other things. So that's one of the biggest ways that avoidance showed up.
Yeah.
Or I would avoid like having the conversation where I had to tell someone no if I just didn't do it, because
Mhm.
for a long time, like I didn't even think about the fact that I could say no. Then
Mhm.
once through therapy, like, okay, I used to have to like do like pre-enactments. Okay. So before it's gonna happen, like, like
You have
role
to
playing.
practice setting
Yes.
boundaries with people.
Because I just again, I would be as you called it, or maybe it was Marissa, what was it? Fight, flight, freeze,
Right.
fawn. Right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I would get like my anxiety would shoot through the roof. And
Wow.
my anxiety, that I call it the whooping feeling. Like for those of you who got whoopings, if you be like, I'm gonna whoop you when I get home, you're going like
Mm.
that is what that's how anxiety like is very reminiscent of
Ah,
that feeling.
okay.
So um here I am, avoiding this self-work, avoiding figuring out who I am, avoiding saying no, doing the role play to say no, maybe not even saying no. Because again, I would rather just avoid this anxiety that I get when I'm trying to work up the nerve to say no. How about I just say yes? I'm just about to do it. Do I want to? No.
Okay.
I'm just gonna
And
do it.
we talked about this before, Prill, like always being busy is a trauma response.
Mhm.
And ultimately, you were saying that you were avoiding because you didn't really know who you were.
Right.
You were always of service to other people, but you didn't really know who you were, what made
Yes.
you happy,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So,
Okay.
mhm.
Okay. So that was the one part about avoidance. The other part you said was you had to establish a relationship with money. And I think that's hard for many of us because we've been told that, money is the root of all evil.
Mhm.
Right. So money's not everything. So can you talk about developing a relationship with money and how that helped you get out of debt?
Yeah, so I guess the first step to when dealing with any problem is admitting you have a problem. Now,
True.
I say that like joking, but honestly, I had to come to the realization that I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea what's coming in. I have no idea
Mhm,
what's coming out.
mhm.
And what I did was I went back 90 days, hopped on the app, went back 90 days, looked at all the expenses that came through my bank account, went through, at that time, I had like 5 or 6, I can't remember off the top of my head, credit cards. So I
Okay.
had to go and look what was automatically coming off on those. I had to look at my interest rates
Oh
for all
yeah.
of those.
Mhm,
I knew they were crazy. I knew
mhm,
they were creeping up over the years because I would get the
mhm,
notices, like the Fed has changed, and I had to sit there and look at it. And it took me probably about 2 or so weeks to get through the whole thing, because I would just be like, huh. Because again, I start thinking about like, man, how, like, I totaled up how much I spent like eating out. And I'm like, this is such and such. But again, and we can talk about that later, because like I told you before, mama don't do noodles. Okay. I did not
mhm.
change. I
So
did
you
not
were eating well.
change.
You spent a lot of money. You were eating your
Yeah.
money, basically.
Right, right. So my lifestyle didn't have this dramatic change, but before I could look and really just make my peace with what I was looking at, and like I said, really just shift to, okay, how are we gonna fix this?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
was just, I would get sucked back into regret and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and then I would come back. So it was not something that was easy. That's why when I told you, like, that was the most difficult
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
was sitting down and looking at that and making my peace with it. I mean, could you imagine 6 figures? Like, let me some spreadsheets. Okay. So I have spreadsheets and they have all kinds of form. It's like color coded, and I'm just inputting the total, like, credit line, the interest rate, the balance. I mean, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, this is somebody's house.
Mm,
Like, you know what
mm.
I mean?
See it on
Like,
paper. You'd have been
right,
avoiding it. Now you see it on paper, and you can't run away from
right, right.
it.
And
Mhm.
then also I'm looking at things that were, and this is not like grand, and this is why I say, like, yes, that number over $100,000. I say it because, like, it hits, it stops, it gets the people going, right?
Mhm.
But something else is, these things that I did, um, can be done, like I said, if it's $10,000, if it's $1,000, because if you don't have enough money to pay your bills or to pay your debt, like it could be $10. Because for me, at one point, it was $10 made the difference between me being able to keep a roof over our head, or like being able to eat. And this
Wow.
is 3 college degrees, after,
Wow.
like I said, after I left my ex-husband.
Mhm.
So um, yeah, that's one thing that I would suggest to people to do,
Mhm.
is to start there. And let's be clear.
Mhm.
So I don't use terms like debt free. I can't really stand like labels,
Mhm.
because we're all so different. We're all extremely nuanced.
Mhm.
Like, my jacket pocket, okay, is different from what's going on in yours.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just,
So let's kind of break it down for the people watching, right? Because I
okay.
see somebody said this is resonating with me so much. I've been a huge money avoider, and I've been in and out of debt and still healing from past money traumas.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the ways we can heal from past money traumas, Pro?
So for me, and I think because of just how I'm wired,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also from church. And I think, and what's interesting is, as much as I'm starting to talk, I'm just, I think, going to keep going down this like church route, because I'm at a very, like a new iteration of myself that
Okay.
started this spring, like it did last spring. And I'm realizing and coming in contact with people, when I step back and look at our lives, there's a lot of commonalities, that we are Black women who grew up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And how I absorbed some of the things was, everything is always my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if anything bad happens, it's
Mm-hmm.
because I did something that was not pleasing to God, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
being tested, and I couldn't even get excited about things, because I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Oh man.
To whom much is given, much is required. So
Mm-hmm.
again, these things showed up in other areas. And this is not like to bash the church or anything at all, but we have to go back, and like, we have to have self-awareness. And
Yeah.
that's not always easy. But if you step back and you just think about, where did you learn your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with money? I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in a house, like I said, where credit was not discussed. My father came home, he brought his paycheck home, and he gave it to my mother. I didn't know until after my mother passed away. Actually, my dad told me that my mom always made much more than him.
Oh.
So I'm not one to like be flashy with my money. I did
Mm-hmm.
learn that, but also I had no idea about credit. I knew that I was supposed to pay like my 10% tithes. I was
Mm-hmm.
told that you always have to save, but it was just like this, for, or just in case, or like this, like, fear based.
Yeah.
And it just came from other things that my parents taught us, and how we were raised to be playing offense and defense. Like, it doesn't matter what it was,
Mm-hmm.
like, my parents used to be like, my dad calls me his brick house, because I'm built different than my sisters. It's always like, look, you got to know that A, B, C, and D, because you're built different, or because you look different, or whatever. So I had like that avoidance was natural if all you're hearing about money is fear based. So why
Right.
wouldn't I avoid something that is like, or why wouldn't I be ashamed if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a position that I've heard about my entire life? Don't do this. You're not supposed to do this, or
Mm-hmm.
watch out for this. And again, you couple that with these things that happen. I did something wrong.
Yeah.
So the way that I'm set up, like, naturally, and this is not, it does not happen nearly as much anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
as I, tell my clients, and I tell people, like, I've been this version of myself, just say 5 or 6 years. I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost 50 years old,
Mm-hmm.
like, so I like, that is who, when I get put in different situations, things like that pop up. But look and see, ask yourself, how is money talked about? like growing
Like,
up.
what were you taught growing up?
Right,
What were the messages? What was modeled to you?
right.
And how have you internalized that for your own life too?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it turns out that my mother, when she would get upset, she was, I don't know, like a compulsive shopper or spender or something like that. Like my mom would take all the money and just spend it.
Oh, wow. So
I
retail therapy.
found,
Your
yes.
retail
So
therapy. Okay.
that's the way that she like dealt with things. But I
Mhm.
didn't know this. And I honestly think that that's the way that my mom's trauma responses, and it just showed up that way in money.
Okay.
Because who, like, if no one is telling us these things,
Mhm.
and saying it in a healthy way, and
Mhm.
saying it without the shame on you or the coulda
Mhm.
woulda shoulda,
Mhm.
we have a healthier relationship with money. Like
Mhm.
my son has a healthier relationship with money. Doesn't mean that he doesn't spend money on like dumb stuff and like, sir, you knew better. But it's just like, it's like, that's life. But that is what I say. Look at how money was talked about in your household. And maybe money, maybe you had all these things modeled to you. So if you were raised with a healthy relationship with money, then ask yourself, what was that turning point? Because typically we do things that, we feel safe doing. So if I'm raised fearing money or fearing having success, we don't even need to go down that road. But having money is definitely, and especially in the United States, but in the Black community, if you have money, great. But I'm fearful of it.
Yeah.
I'm scared because I know I've spent more than I have, or I know that I'm racking up this credit card debt, or I know, like, fill in the blank. So I'm just going to, it scares me and it gives me the whooping feeling. So I just avoid it.
Right. And then
You
you mentioned about your mom. I see somebody else in the comments said my mother was a shopaholic too. And I see my dear friend Colette Elizabeth. Hey, friend. So did you have issues with that too, like retail therapy? Like if you were stressed about something,
Mm-mm.
no, that was not something you did.
No,
More
no,
so
no.
other
Yeah.
areas in which the credit kind of got
Yeah. And let me
okay.
tell you too, I was recently having this conversation with my friend. I was like, look, I got my first house at 19 because
Wow.
I've always been a good saver. I've always had my first job I was making at 14 years old. So this would have been, I don't know, like early 90s. I was making $10 an hour,
Okay.
which I think like it was like 175 or maybe like two something. I've
Okay.
always been a very good saver, but again, because you got to have it just in case something happens.
Mhm.
So I would just have like my squad of guys that I would pit against each other, and then they would give me their money. Okay. That was funding my lifestyle. And then I would save my money.
Oh, wow.
But no, as a single mom, I didn't have like a lot of, like imagine you being a broke college student, then
Mhm.
imagine having a child. And back then, this was like 19 or September, so like 1996, it was
Mhm.
$175 for my son's daycare a week in
Wow.
1996. So I learned how, I mean, I always knew how to sew.
Mhm.
I was like, my mother was always dressed nice. She always made sure we were dressed nice.
Mhm.
So I sewed a lot of my things.
Mhm.
I didn't grow up getting my hair done a lot or stuff. So do my own hair. My nails grow naturally long. Do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm gonna learn how to, whatever it is that I wanted, I'm going to replicate it. And that's a good thing because
Mhm.
I'm not frivolous with my money. But on the other side of that, because I can tend to be an extremist, it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I had to find the balance of
Mhm.
paying for convenience. I will pay for convenience, but I
Mhm.
had to like let go of that. Well, I can do it. I can do it again. Team too much. So
Yeah.
it's like a Venn diagram. It's like circles all over the place that
Yeah.
intersect with each other. But
Yeah. And I'm glad you're laying that out because we talked about before a big part of getting a handle on your money situation is to understand the mindset. Like, how did I even get in
mhm,
a situation in the first place? So that let's say I get out of the situation, I don't want to end up again back in the same situation. Okay.
mhm,
So, April, can you lay out for the people?
mhm,
How did you do it? How did you do it? I heard you say that you started to say, you said, okay, I've been avoiding it. I need to look at it. How did you even get to the point of saying, I need to do this? That's the first thing. And then
mhm.
walk us through how did you actually get out of $100,000 in debt? Like lay it all out for us.
Okay, so sure thing. So when I said like, okay, I got to get this together, when I was like, I am not staying in this place, okay, for this next election.
Okay.
I
Okay.
went to sleep.
Okay.
Remember,
You had
I've said
a
this
date.
before.
Okay. You had a date. Okay. Got
Yes, like
it.
I
Okay.
went to sleep on that fateful day in January. Like I'm not going to be here for the next election, and this was
Okay.
before I discovered the Exodus
Mm-hmm.
Summit community, any of that. I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm not like. So how am I going to be able to go somewhere? I did not think I would move out of the country. I knew for a fact I was not going to be in the United States election day, and I wanted to, travel. I knew that I had plans to travel. Now, how am I going to do this though,
Yeah.
knowing I have this debt? So
Got it.
that was the first thing, like I said. And the hardest thing is
Mm-hmm.
to look and to make your peace with what you have.
Okay.
The next thing I did was, because I was looking at my notes. I have all of these notes in the phone because Dr. Kamani, you've been telling me to come on here and talk about this for like 2 years now.
Yes. I feel like this is exclusive now because I was like, I'm taking notes myself because
Yes,
I've
it
been
is.
telling
I've
April,
not
like,
talked
oh,
about
I'm
it.
waiting for this video. And I was like, girl, just come on
Yeah.
my channel. We talk about it.
And
Right.
and you know what? Just a simple fact. See, this is a real life example, and I'm gonna get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a real life example of 2 years now. I've been saying, yeah, I'm gonna make the video. I'll make the video. You said, come on my channel. But do
Mm-hmm.
you know why I
Right.
didn't do it?
Right.
Was because we don't talk about money. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want people to think like two things. I didn't want people to know
Mm-hmm.
that like, okay, I had this debt and I'm like, I know that this will help someone else. But
Mm-hmm.
then I also didn't want, oh no, are people gonna think I'm out here like flexing? Or because again, my people pleasing shows up with putting other people's like needs and like trying to preempt these things. Am I gonna make someone else feel bad about
Wow.
their debt? So I went through all of these things. So that is a real life example of
Mm.
how my relationship with money showed up, even in the fact that it's taken over 2 years to make this video. Okay. So now here's something that when I looked in the notes in my phone, I saved $7,000 in a year, just like took $7,000 off of my yearly expenses. Three things.
Mm.
I called my insurance company. And I never drove like my vehicle at all. Like I have my car, I got it January 2020. I didn't even put 12,000 miles on it when I sold it in when I came here. So June 30th, 2024 was when I sold my car. I didn't even have 12,000 miles on it. So I called my insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Allstate said, "Oh, we have like a pay per mile."
Pay
I
per
said,
mile.
"Yeah,
What is
pay
that?
per mile."
What is
So
that?
so it's like you order this little thing that's keyed exactly for your VIN number, your car, whatever. It's like a little plug-in that you put, if they're like doing your smog, or
Mm-hmm.
like if they want to see if a light or something came on.
Mm-hmm.
And then based on if I'm like braking fast or if I'm speeding, which I don't do,
Mm-hmm.
it drops your like, because it goes on a rolling week. So every week, how you drove the week before, it lowers and lowers and lowers. So here I am paying, I don't know, like close to $300 a month for a car that I don't drive. Again, not even thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And, here they're telling me 7 cents a mile, and you pay like, I think it was $140, and it just chips away at the 140, and it tells you when you need to re-up.
Ah, so you save money right there on your overall premium
Yes, just
by doing
period.
paid per mile.
Period. Okay. So
Okay.
check your
That's
state.
brilliant. Okay.
I think there's only a handful of states where they don't do it. I believe all of the major carriers do. I had Allstate at the time,
Mm-hmm.
so I know they did it, but check your state, because at least this was, I don't know, 2 years ago or so. So it may have become even more popular. So that's
Okay.
one thing. Okay. So now I'm paying $140 every 3 or so months instead of $300 per month.
Okay.
That daggone dog. Anyway, sorry, my neighbor has a dog that just.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. The next thing is I called. At the time, it was Sprint. I've been with Sprint. They told me 24 years because I called again, okay, to ask them, am I on the right plan? Okay. Anything that you have that's like a monthly reoccurring expense, call them people. This is what I do. I still do it. Call the people up, say or press a button for to disconnect my service. Like that is, it's going to send you straight to the retention department. They're going to try to talk you out of. Do y'all know that I have had free Uber One I don't even know, probably like 4 years. I know that I've been paying since like before the Coco Panini, that's what I call it,
Mhm.
COVID pandemic.
Mhm.
I've been paying $2.99 a month for all of the Hulu Disney Plus. Why? Because I put a thing in my calendar and say, like, I'm gonna shut it down, and then they're like, hold on, will you stay if you get two ninety
Oh, we'll give you
nine
some
for 6 months?
perks.
Every single time. So I put it like take advantage of these things. And when I called, it was I think it had just turned over to T-Mobile, but whatever. When I called my cell phone carrier, they're like, oh yeah, well, Sprint people have a grandfathered, like all everything for I don't know. I think I paid like $30 or something a line. Where here I am, like I hadn't called in a few years. Also, I had iPhones. I just paid for my iPhones, and they were like, "Well, do you have any?" Like, where about this iPhone? I mean, I got, I don't know, like $800-900 for phones that are just sitting and collecting dust.
Mhm.
So and that's what I'm saying. When you look at these things, don't get caught up on like just hit it and quit it. This is my interest rate. This is how much I owe, and get out of there, right?
Mhm.
But when you're looking at your expenses, what are like reoccurring monthly things?
Mhm.
You know, um, and again, mama don't do noodles, okay? And I'm not about to put myself because if you think about it, with 6 figures, right, of debt, is me. I make my own coffee anyway, but you know how people say like, you just have to, you know, make your own. I don't know, whatever. You're
Don't go
making
to
your own
Starbucks,
coffee at
make your
home and
own
don't do
coffee.
this.
Mhm.
That low, even if it's $100, like
Mhm.
no, that, and you're depriving. Now, my mother did tell me that, which she had her moments.
Mhm.
God rest her soul. Okay, where she was like, because I was gonna do something. She was like, well, why wouldn't you do it? And I'm like, well, because that money can be used for something else. She's like, why would you deprive your? I mean, and it was a nominal amount, but
Mhm.
again, I'm just like, I gotta save every penny because I'm doing this, doing that. So I called T-Mobile. I
Mhm.
called my insurance just to say, like, what can I do to get this down? And then I had a storage unit that I was paying for. I do not want to talk about how much. Let's not even talk about it. Okay,
Okay.
I'm just gonna tell you. I can't even say it. Okay. It was tens of thousands of dollars.
For
So
storage?
for storage over that storage, I think I got that storage unit when I was getting ready to leave grad school. So 2009. This is
So
this
that
is
that money was just
This is 2022. Now, keep in
wow.
mind, there's stuff in there that I've not used. So obviously, I don't need it. If it was important to me, it would be with me.
Mhm.
So you know what I did? I just said, well, I'm just about to, somebody gonna get something on Storage Wars. It was a lot of my like wedding decor and just beautiful things that I
Mhm.
got because I'm gonna have the DIY. Okay.
Mhm.
It was beautiful. And I said, okay, I'm gonna I sold a lot of the stuff, but I
Okay.
had a fellowship to do, so I left. Um, I just let it go. I just took
Okay.
my card out of there so they weren't taking it out, and I just let it go.
Okay.
So that in and
Kind of
of itself,
see where you're kind of bleeding money
yeah,
and evaluate where you're bleeding money and then see if you can stop that source.
yes.
Right. Okay. So I
Hmm.
just want to tell everybody I'm taking notes and I'm going to recap. Yes, I got my pencil. I'm taking notes. And then based on everything April says, I'm gonna go back through and share it with everybody. Okay. So I'm taking notes. Okay, go on, girl.
Okay.
What else you
All
do?
right. Now, because of that storage in Nashville, I said, well, I have a storage in Phoenix because I had a bakery. Then, after my lease was up, I just put stuff in storage.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I have a whole 400 square foot casita that nothing is being used. Now, that was almost $500 a month for
Mm-hmm.
storage. So get the little, and that place had like a free truck for move in and move out. So I got the truck for free 99. I packed up my storage unit, came and moved that stuff in the casita. So now I'm cutting that. For me, I'm a creature of habit to a fault.
Hmm.
Like if I sit something down, this
Mm-hmm.
is like for real, for real. If I
Okay.
sit something down, and I'll walk past it, it ceases to exist. It can
Mm-hmm.
sit there for, I don't know, like a month. And
Mm-hmm.
I just am going to continue to walk past it. So
Mm-hmm.
because I have my blinders on and I know like, okay, I'm paying this, I'm paying that. Do I have enough money? Yes. But when I'm looking, it's just like one thing turns into another, turns into another. And
Mm-hmm.
again, these are like simple things. Something else is I stopped being the ATM. Okay. You know what the ATM stood for? Abel Thatcher's money. Okay. No.
Ooh. Okay.
No,
So are we talking about like with family, friends?
right.
Okay.
I stopped like because again, I like I want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how I felt when I didn't have such and such. God sent someone to help me. So that to me, I'm supposed to help. Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no. I started staying in my lane.
Okay.
No, because this is money that can be spent elsewhere. So
Okay.
instead of me doing like what my emotions, I
Mhm.
really said, like, is my spirit, is my heart telling me to do this? And guess
Okay.
what? It wasn't
Okay.
because because again, it was me like feeling bad
Uh-huh.
and guilt tripping myself. So I,
You had to work through the emotional
right,
reactivity of I'm
yes.
feeling anxious, I feel bad, I want to help. Okay, let me give you the money.
And we are blessed to be a blessing, are we not? And we
Mm,
are. I believe that. But
uh-huh.
when again, unchecked. So it's just
Mhm.
like like
So you
that's
were
how I move.
tracking that, and you're like, "Wait a minute, I'm spending a whole bunch of money," and you had a goal in
Right.
sight. I think that's the key thing is that if we have a time frame and we know what the goal is, okay, I'm trying to move out the country, so I have
Mm-hmm.
this amount of time, so I need to put this plan in place because I have to get out of here, right? So whatever the goal
Yes.
is. So that really helped you with that emotional reaction of, "I wanna help people. I wanna help people. I'm giving
Yes.
money away."
And keep in mind, I didn't start like really until what was that Q4 of 21. So the election, or not the election, the insurrection was the like what July or I'm sorry, January.
Anyway, mhm,
So we're talking about even a couple years before I started taking action. But I saw this earlier, so let me grab this out. But
mhm,
I set 3 goals, and it
mhm,
was to save, like pay down my debt,
mhm,
build back up my savings,
mhm.
and to put money aside for my exodus.
Okay,
Yep. And
okay.
I created that July 9th, 2022.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah,
July 9th,
yes.
2022. Okay. And
Mhm.
I just want to say, speaking of Exodus, Stephanie Perry's in the house. Hey, Stephanie.
Hey,
So Stephanie
Stephanie.
and Rashida talk about the Exodus Summit, which I'll put in description section. So April's like, okay, I'm planning for my Exodus, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So tell us, keep laying down, like laying out the additional things you were doing to pay off your debt.
Okay. So, and I left this out.
Hmm.
Forget about your credit. I know that we've heard like you gotta have your credit, you gotta have. Now, for me, my situation was a little bit different.
Hmm.
I owned my homes, I owned my car, like I already had the things that I needed. So for those of you who do you have a roof over your head, whether you own it, whether you're renting, whether
Hmm.
you rent a room from some, do you have a roof over your head? Right. So no one's gonna be running your credit for a mortgage or for an apartment. Do
Hmm.
you have a vehicle that you drive? Or if not, do you even plan on getting a vehicle? No, then don't nobody's running your credit. Do you plan on having any large purchases? If not, like so much of our like money stories are
Hmm.
also, especially in the Black community,
Hmm.
is like linked to our credit score.
It is. It is. You be like, okay, did I do that? Oh my God, my credit
Right.
score gonna go down, right? So be
Yes.
aware of what it is, but not
Yes.
overly wrapped up to it. And you can't, it's like crippling you in some ways. Like you can't move past it because you're so full of shame about your credit
Yeah.
score. Okay.
And
Okay.
frankly, to me, go look at, I think everyone should pull their credit report. Make
Hmm.
sure that there's no debts that do not belong to you. Make
Hmm.
sure that there's no things on there that is past the time.
Hmm.
That's a whole different situation. Like, look, that's when the legal eagle comes out of me because I used to knock people. Like, I would be like, why did you do this? Don't say that. Send this letter, do that, whatever. But make sure. So do that, but then you're done.
Okay.
Do not hold on to that your credit score. All right. Now some of you are, because I'm getting ready to tell you things that I did
Okay.
that people would have been like, oh my God, we're told not to do that. So
Mhm.
the first thing, and maybe a long time ago, or maybe this was never the case, but
Mhm.
I've heard if you do debt consolidation, that's it for you. They're going to ask you, did you consolidate? They're going to ask you, blah, blah. So that's what I did. I called Chase because I had a Chase credit card at the time.
Mhm.
I called Chase because I called all my, oh, that's another thing. Whew, I'm glad y'all taking notes because
Girl,
it's
I'm
coming back
following.
to me.
Yes.
So when you're calling those reoccurring, call your credit cards
Mhm.
because I did like a debt transfer and then I had 6 months of interest free.
Okay.
So there's a whole nother way to like look at your debt. I do more like did like hybrid, but I'll make a part 2 to get into like the nitty
Okay.
gritty. But call your credit card companies
Mhm.
and say, do you have any like specials for any reduction in, like interest reduction or any balance transfers? Or am I eligible for an increase? Because they'll do that, so that gives you, at least takes away, I guess, some of your debt if you want to view it that way.
Can you speak to that a
Um,
little bit? Because I think that might be confusing for some people. They
yeah,
might think, wait a minute, you want me to call the credit company to get an increase in my credit limit? It's not going
yeah.
to be more debt. So can you speak to why that?
Yeah,
Because
well, you're not going to spend it because,
Mhm.
okay, so that's more, I think, for one, peace of mind, and two, if you need to either do a balance transfer or one of your lower interest credit cards now just say gives you $2,500 more, but you've got, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,800 left on the balance on another credit card.
Mhm.
So now you can get that one, because that's how I started. I just, let me look at which ones I can knock out. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so this is, whatever,
Mhm.
$800 there, not, I'm doing low numbers, but you know what I mean? Like, but ask them, are there any specials? Is there, any balance transfers? Are there any interest rates? Me, I had like an old card and I was eligible for like a whole new like version of the card. With at this time it was US Bank. So I was eligible for a completely different card, which then gave me like the 0% interest for the 9 months.
Okay,
So yeah.
let me just reiterate something that
Mhm.
everybody can hear what April said. Okay, so she was saying contact credit card companies to see if there's balance transfers, see if you can increase your credit limit, but do
Mhm.
not spend the extra money. That is just insurance if you might need it in some kind of way,
Yes.
and it might help you in the balance transfer process.
Yes. Or if you have a debt
Okay,
that can be absorbed by that credit card that now
ah,
either has a 0% interest
with
or has a
lower
lower
interest rate.
interest. Right.
Got it.
Because something else I did too was I'm not depriving myself and I was celebrating my wins, which is tough when you're like, okay, oh, I paid off the balance on my Amex that was, just say 2,200. I didn't view it as a drop in the bucket. Not like how I view don't go to Starbucks or don't go, out to eat or whatever. Like
Hmm.
I begin to celebrate these wins. That's huge.
Hmm.
Like, and again, don't view it from the credit perspective. Learn to celebrate your wins, no matter how small they are or may seem. Like that was huge for me to be able to check that off my list and
Okay.
to see my little pie chart begin to change that I
Okay.
had, every time I entered in a payment that I made.
Okay.
So, to go back, call the reoccurring bills that you have, call your cell phone, call your internet provider, call your insurance company. If you have stored somewhere, lean into the fact that you've been a customer with these people, or like I said, say you're gonna quit, because I'm not giving up my Disney Plus. Okay, I got shows that I like to watch, but I will tell you, transfer me because I don't want this. They're gonna be like, hold on, and then just make sure that you set 6 months, 3 months, whatever in your calendar, so you don't get a surprise bill that you didn't plan for. But again, that's part of knowing what's coming in and what's going out. So there won't be surprises or very little surprises. Okay. So yeah, I set my goals. Like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I even doing it? I also wanted to build up my savings at the time because my savings have been decimated. Now, some people will tell you, like, pay from the highest interest rate to the lowest or the low, like whatever that is. To me, you have to do what makes sense for you, but also, like I said, celebrate those like small, the wins, or you're checking stuff off your list. But I'm like, I'm gonna pay off these two ones real quick, knock those out, and then I'm gonna shift, just say 50% of that money to my savings. So I'll give you an example. We'll just use round numbers. So if I say like, okay, every single paycheck, I'm gonna pay $1,000 towards this bill. And then once I'm done knocking off these like two, right, that I already said these are going to be my first two I pay off, now I'm going to continue doing the $1,000, but I'm splitting it. So now I'm putting $500 into my savings and I'm putting $500 towards like the next, whatever the next card or bill that I decided to pay. Something else that I did too was I just had money come out of my paycheck to go to a savings account. Because to me, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Like some people know they're getting deposits back, or like I'm a resident, so I'm not supposed to get charged tourist tax. I completely forgot about that. Them people at American and United, I'm getting a couple thousand. That's another thing. Start calling in those markers. If people owe you money, forget all that, okay? Like, no. Hit them up and say, like, oh, hey, okay, anyway, look. Like, I'm planning my exodus. I'm planning whatever. Like, you know, like, can you start paying me some of that money back?
Can I ask you a question, April? Because it
Sure.
kind of goes back to, and again, I'm going to repeat everything that April was sharing right now, all the gems. So one of the things you said too was that you stopped being an ATM to others, right? And then
Yeah.
now I hear you say that follow up with people who owe you money.
hmm
I've heard people say something about be mindful that when you loan people money, kind of keep in mind that you are probably not going to get that money back.
Yeah. My mom used to say anything over $5 is a gift, not a loan.
Ooh.
So yeah. And there's some that you just gotta charge it to the game. And some of you may not, I'm talking about people that I know. So I can be like, okay, I saw you on Instagram talking about you
You're
in
going on vacation.
Belize.
What about that money you owe me?
Hold on.
Yes.
Can I hold $20 or whatever? But again, it's also holding them accountable. But realistically, I couldn't have done that with some of the other people. Oh my God, no. I would never dream of it. So you just, charge it to the game. But if you do that, you have to let it go.
Okay.
That's something else too. Like you can't, like you just have to wash your hands of that.
Okay.
Yeah, but because again, you'll start seeing Adelia Aborshade, Picky Girl
Mhm.
Travels. She said something once that when I was looking through my notes, I saw it, and she said every dollar has a job. I didn't view it as that, but I started looking. Oh, that's another thing. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all, because this stuff's coming back to me.
Uh-huh.
Something else I did was why I never did this before, I don't know. I just had my stuff in my Bank of America savings. I had some CDs, but why did not I not have this in a high yield like savings
That
account?
part, yes. Dr. Roche Brown talks about that. She's a financial psychologist and she's going to be one of the speakers at the summit. She talks about getting a high yield savings account. So I'm going to add that
Yes.
down too.
So I took the money that I've been getting my, I don't know, pennies on the dollar. And
Mm.
also, here's another thing. It made me feel really good to see that those numbers in my savings account. That's why I didn't want to send it anyplace else,
Got it. Okay. So you
because
want to see
I
that
felt
money
like some
grow and
security.
saving.
Right. So to many of us, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened up a high yield interest savings account. I
Mm-hmm.
started having money sent directly there. I
Mm-hmm.
started taking at the end of every month what was left over. Because again, I know what is coming out and when. So I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a certain day at the end of the month for me,
Mm-hmm.
where nothing is like I've paid all of my bills and nothing, my mortgage is the next thing that's going to be due. Whatever is in that account, I transferred it to my savings.
Okay. So
Yeah.
any extra money, it goes in high yield savings. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Because instead of how Adelia says everything has a job, like I don't budget. So, you know, I don't know what to tell y'all. If y'all want to
Okay.
budget, I don't budget. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you something, April? Because
Sure.
I think part of what I heard you say, but I want to make sure it's on the list. You said that you don't like to eat noodles, so meaning that you eat well, right?
Yeah.
So wondering in what way was that an expense for you, and how did that factor in with paying off your $100,000?
Yes. So I was eating, even though I see how I said past tense because I have a chef cook all my meals. Anyway, but yes, I used to love cooking, but I would be so burnt out, or how I say burnt up, that
Mm-hmm.
I did not have the capacity
Mm-hmm.
to get up and cook. Some
Mm-hmm.
days I wouldn't eat at all. So I'm just gonna
Oh.
go and grab something. And because I don't eat like fast food or things like that, I'm
Mm-hmm.
calling it in, or I'm doing Uber Eats, or going to pick my food up.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that it was a part of a larger issue. Because
Okay.
again, that's why you hear me say like stuff shows up all over your life. I'm burnt out. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't even have energy. I don't even have the like bandwidth. I can't even think about doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
eating, let alone I'm gonna get up in the kitchen. Even if I go in the kitchen, what am I gonna eat? Because I didn't go grocery shopping, or I'm throwing food away because I'm either ordering the food because I didn't have the energy to cook, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm wasting food. That's another thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
how much money, and I eat, as like clean as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
how much of them good organic vegetables
Mm-hmm.
and fruits and stuff am I like throwing in the trash? And once you spell out what is coming in and what is going out, you start to see like cha-ching, cha-ching. It's like dollar signs on
So you
things.
kept a track of all your money in and out on an Excel doc?
90 days. So I kept doing it, but this is what I encourage you to do. So if you're like, where do I start? Okay, just, I don't know why I did that voice. That was probably because that's how it sounded. But anyway, 90 days. I want you to go back 90 days from today. And I mean every single, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, because I have a very sophisticated like debt tracker, but what I'm going to do is create like just a simple one that says, total balance, interest rate, whatever. We'll just keep it there because that part of putting those things really is the most difficult part. So, just go and sign up for my email list and I'm going to send it out. I'll do it this weekend or send it early next week.
Okay, make sure
Yeah.
you send the link to me so I can put in the description
Yes,
so I
yes,
can
yes,
get
for
some
sure,
data
for sure.
from the tracker. Okay.
Yes. Okay. But once you see that, you're like, things start to jump out at you. So
Mhm.
is it more important for me to, you know, eat out and spend the money? Because again, I'll pay for convenience, or is it part of a larger issue that I need to have some boundaries? I need
Mhm.
to shut it down,
Mhm.
or I need to stop interacting with them people, the emotional vampires, because it's not always work.
Mhm.
To establish boundaries about a whole bunch of things. Again,
Right.
if you don't have boundaries in one area, I will bet money that they'll show up in other areas. Because
Yeah.
again, people like even my clients, they think it's work. Like, oh my God, if I just leave this job, if I whatever, okay. So we start going through it. Oh, so okay. So what I heard you say is you don't have boundaries here, you don't have boundaries
Mhm.
there. Like, this relationship between Black women and their mothers. So you're supporting this, you're
Mhm.
doing that, you're supporting the whole family because maybe you're the first one to go to college,
Mhm.
and oh, you're acting brand new, you're acting too good. So again, once you start to look at what you're spending your money on, it's
Mhm.
not necessarily that you need to stop spending your money, but you're taking a pause to say, is this more important, or is
Mhm.
this $100?
Mhm.
Can this $100 be like, with that 4.75% interest,
Yeah.
compound interest? You know what I mean?
Right.
Something else I did
Mhm.
was I had a lot of vintage, like high-end handbags. Again, because I told you I had the squad, okay? I'm not buying this stuff. Are you kidding me? That's a waste of money. So why would I had these things that I've had for like 20, oh my goodness, like 25, since like my early 20s.
Hmm.
That they are like they, like I was selling these things, selling them to the real things like that. And there's a site that I use. I think it was like $5 or something. You take a picture, they tell you all these different things, and then they authenticate it. And you have that like QR code, and you put that in the sale, or many times they ask, do you want to sell this? Like, sure, I'm not using it. So look at some of the things that you're not using. And I'm a fan of, if I'm like, if I feel any emotion towards it, and
Mhm.
I'm not talking about well, I'm going to wear this with that one dress that I got this for that I haven't worn in, since before my son was born, or like, I'm not
Mhm.
talking about that, but I'm talking about stuff that you're like, I didn't even like this. It was a gift or like
Right.
whatever.
So you
Just,
could be sitting on money at your house or your home,
yes.
stuff you don't even use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about go through the house and just,
Mhm.
sell it like it's an estate sale. But no, but like
And what were some of those resources you mentioned about where to sell things to?
I'm going to I'll get that to you
Okay.
because there is a site that I use exclusively. Little like boop, 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 boop. I'm telling you. Okay, so
Right.
I will get that. Remind me, Dr. Kamani,
I
because
got it. I'm writing down the
thank
notes.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, my audience, we share a very similar audience. Like they're the high performing,
Mm-hmm.
successful. Like, so typically those go with like nice things.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we could, I don't even want to say afford because I don't use terms like that, but whether maybe that money could have been used for something else, we
Mm-hmm.
have nice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else I did, now this is when I left,
Mm-hmm.
but I sold my vehicle. That was over like $40,000 knocked out right there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because I sold it to Carvana, and Carvana gave me a grip for my car that I wasn't even driving. And I
Wow.
did that. I left July 1st of 2024, and Carvana came that Sunday, the 30th, and picked up my car and handed me a check. And I
Wow.
went, I went right in the house on the counter, the remote deposit. So I took that money and was able to pay off a lot of my debt. Now, I'm not saying that, go sell your car, things like that. But if it's
Look at the
something,
options and how
yeah, like
you did
it's
it.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody has their own life circumstances, right? And
yes.
so that's why, again, I'm going to go through the list again. That's why it's so useful for you to share how you did it so
Hmm.
that people can say, okay, this relates to my life and this doesn't relate to my life, because each person has their own story, how they got into debt and what they're
Hmm.
able to do, what they're not able to do, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And
Okay.
let's be clear, I have credit card debt right now today. I have it on, like one of the cards, they gave me like a little reduction, and now I'm just knocking it out. I'm doing the same
Okay.
thing. And I did it because when I moved in here, I'm
Mhm,
renting out my house, like the big house that people have
mhm,
seen. And
mhm,
I'm took my good furniture, but not that it's bad furniture, but I love this furniture. And
mhm,
it's custom made for me.
mhm,
So I had to buy other furniture. To
mhm.
me, that's an expense that was worth it. I don't
Okay.
want to pull from my savings. So
Mhm.
I'm going to use my credit card with the plan to knock it out in,
Right.
90 days or
Because the
60
thing about
days.
it is that you knocked out the huge amount, which was a
Yeah.
100,000. And I want to make
Yes.
sure I understand. So that was over a 2 year period. So you
Yeah.
implemented all these things over a 2 year period. You
Mm-hmm.
had that 90-day of tracking, which April's going to be sending us the tracking tool.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do that. So you implemented all these things over a 2 year period. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what helped you knock out $100,000.
Yes. And by me selling, because I had a Range Rover, and by me selling it back, because again, if I get like debt, boom, 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 I'm paying it off. But
Mm,
that thing, I mean, it was like a little like bidding war. I went to CarMax. I even like back to the Range Rover dealership, like because again, it doesn't have 12,000 miles on it. It still had like lightweight, the new
mm,
car smell. Because I
yeah.
don't eat in my car, just things like that. So
Mm,
that last bid actually bumped my savings. But when I knocked out, so it was less than 8 months, I paid like 50,000. And just how I said, yes, and just how I said that, I know I wanted to pay those two off, and then I
mhm,
started splitting the money. I became like it flipped. I became very aggressive with my savings account,
mm,
and then just kind of ticked away at paying the rest of the credit card debt.
yeah.
Oh, I left this out. Okay, y'all. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I
okay,
started talking
cool.
about this.
Okay.
I did debt consolidation. I
Okay.
did debt consolidation of two US bank accounts and a my Chase bank account. And Chase was the one who told me that, because remember, you call all of the your credit cards and see if they have any specials if you're eligible for anything.
Mhm.
And then I was calling, Chase, and Chase was like, yeah, no. Same thing with US Bank. And I'm like, see, I've been with y'all since 1990, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But again, like they're about their money.
Mhm.
So Chase said, "Hey, well, we have a partner that we work with. We're not affiliated, but you give them a call." It was like debt consult. I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, no, I'm not doing that. No," because again, debt consolidation. I heard, whether it was true at that time or not, but
Mhm.
you're asked if you apply for things or whatever, and it shows up on your credit. Let me
Mhm.
tell you what, at least now, like debt consolidation. This is the second thing that might freak some people out. I
Mhm.
closed two of my longest like credit cards, which again, forget
They
about
tell
your
you
credit
never
score.
to do that.
Forget about your credit. That's what I'm saying. Forget about your credit score. It
Mm.
took it took a hit,
Mm.
but only for like a couple months. And
Mm.
then funny enough, my score shot up because that debt's been taken off. So with the debt consolidation, they either have negotiated rates or somebody will call on your behalf. Typically, they have like negotiated rates.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely going to be less. I think it was like four. Matter of fact, I have like my original tracker. I think I'm gonna I'll make a video
Who
about
did
that.
you go through for
Yeah.
your debt consolidation?
Yeah, so it's MMI. I think it's Money Management International, and it's a nonprofit. And of course, I checked them out. Yeah, hold on. I think it's MMI. Yeah, so it's moneymanagement.org. And
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat. But that's what I went through.
Okay.
I paid 800 and like little bit over $800.
Mm-hmm.
That came out the 14th of every month. And then what they do is when you pay off like one, it just starts the same amount, but it just starts paying the other ones off. Dr. Kamani, I'm going to put that link there in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I did that. I closed two of my long credit cards and then one that I'd only have for a few years. They
Mm-hmm.
negotiated. I mean, all of them were like high 20s. One was 4.9. I know that for a fact. The other one was a flat 10%. So
Mm-hmm.
again, if you think about if you're just knocking stuff out,
Mm-hmm.
I paid twice a month because when you're thinking about compound interest, you are billed just a slight amount for your interest for your balance every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and I just paid that one payment. And it removes, so the reason it bumps your credit up is because now three of those like high interest, high amount debts are no longer reflected. So that's something that I encourage anyone to do, whether you have a whole bunch of debt or you're just like, I'm looking to just pay off what I have. I still have the two that I've had since like 2004.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, like I didn't need them.
Okay.
So that's why I said, forget about your credit. Like, don't check it to make sure, check it for accuracy, check it to
Mm-hmm.
make sure there's nothing on there that doesn't belong to you, but
Mm-hmm.
let that credit report go because it does not define you. It does not, it's not an indicator of your worth or your value.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a part of your personality, not in real life. So, yeah.
So listen, everybody, I'll put that on the screen about the debt consolidation that April used. So April, I have 17 tips
Oh,
that I was taking notes on. 17. Okay. So I
oh,
want
wow.
to go through them so people
Okay.
can hear them, right? If there's anything I left out, you let me know.
Okay. I'm going to think about it while you're
Okay.
talking.
So first you talked about having the goals in mind, right? So you talked about paying debt, build up savings, money for Exodus. You said that July 9th, 2022. So the
Mm-hmm.
first tip is come up with a time frame that you want to pay out your debt, right?
Yes.
What is your goal? What's your time frame? That's one. Number two, you said that you save money by calling your car insurance and did paid per mile. So
Mm-hmm.
ask about that as an option as opposed to paying a flat fee every month.
Right. Yep.
That might be an option.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, you mentioned about with monthly recurring expenses, call them and insinuate that you are thinking about canceling,
Yes.
indicate that you are a loyal customer, and
Mm-hmm.
they will bump you to the retention department. And when
Yes.
they bump you to the retention department, then you can get some perks,
Mm-hmm.
good perks. Just
Mm-hmm.
make sure perks and benefits. Just make sure you track in your calendar when the perks are set to expire,
Right.
so you keep getting the perks. Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Number four, contact your cell phone carrier to see about reducing
Mm-hmm.
fees.
Yeah.
Five, look to see where you're bleeding money that you're no longer using, like
Mm-hmm.
in storage. You were
Yeah.
spending a whole bunch of money on storage and wasn't even using that
Yes.
stuff. Six, I love what you said. Stop being an ATM to others. So limit how much money you give to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Seven, you said pull your credit report so you make sure that no debts are on there that don't belong to you, right?
Right. With the names correct and things like that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But don't become overly consumed with your credit number,
Let it go.
credit score number. Okay. Eight, call your credit cards and ask for specials and balance transfers or
Mm-hmm.
increase in credit limit.
Yeah.
Please note that you are not going to spend the extra money. The
Yeah.
extra money is to help you in an emergency, insurance,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can roll over your credit debt to a credit card with a lower interest rate. So then you end up
Correct.
saving money because you're not paying that higher interest rate. Okay.
Correct.
9, you mentioned celebrate the small wins, maybe the snowball method where you're focusing on the smaller amounts that you owe on credit cards. Pay those off first, not the huge amount.
Right.
Pay
Or
those.
even not the ones with the highest APR. To me, I paid off the one that I knew I could do fast. And
Okay.
that first one was, I think it was like $2,500 for my Amex.
Okay.
Like
So that
that's
gave you
something that
sense
I
like
knew
I'm
I
making
could do.
progress,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
Yep.
And then you said, and then any additional money. So once you paid off the smaller debts, you took
Mm-hmm.
off that additional money and you started shifting that to savings, right?
Yes.
Okay. 10, I have that you money directly went from your paycheck to savings. You had a portion
Mm-hmm.
directly going to savings, out of sight, out of mind. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about high yield savings accounts because
Mm-hmm.
at the bank they're going to give you pennies, less than pennies, right?
A
So get
point
a
something
high yield
percent,
savings
zero
account.
something
Yeah,
percent.
yeah, yeah. So Dr. Roche was actually talking about this during the master class, the financial master class, that you could just Google what are the best high yield savings accounts now and follow
Mm-hmm.
up with those. Okay.
Yes.
So that was 10. 11, follow up with people who owe you money.
Mm-hmm.
12, the high yield savings account. And any extra money goes in, well, that kind of doubled with the other step, but just
Right.
restate that.
Out of my checking account. So anything that was left at the end of the month, instead
Okay.
of me leaving it there, so it made me feel good that I could see it, it
Uh-huh.
was gone. Like, yeah, Zelle, it was gone.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yep.
okay. And then you said, then check your expenses for things like food delivery, check to see if
Mm-hmm.
you're wasting food, kind of see again where you're wasting money.
Mm-hmm.
14, the 90 days of tracking your money in and out. And April
Mm-hmm.
will be sending a tracker that I'll be sharing with you all about how to track your money 90 days, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Go
50,
90 days back and then
yeah.
90 days forward. You do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Backward and forward. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 15, you sold things, clothing, handbags that were no longer useful. You didn't even
Mm-hmm.
use anymore. You were
At
making
all.
money.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
April's going to be sharing with us the resources for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be in the description section when April sends that to me. 16, you sold your car. You sold your
Yeah.
truck when you went to move to
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, made a whole bunch of money from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
17, debt consolidation of bank accounts. And then that's what we mentioned here. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So did I cover everything, Pearl?
Yes. Okay. I think what was it? Number 4, where you talk
Okay.
about, okay. So well, I might have made that up, but call the like higher ticket. So insurance,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of our internet's out of control. Internet, cell phone, like talk to a person for
Okay.
those. And then just go in your app.
Okay.
Like, for like Peacock. I've got free Peacock. They've never charged me. But like with my Disney Plus, with the Hulu, just go in the app. Uber One, like I said, it's been a couple years, free. Go in I'm gonna cancel because you get a free 30-day trial.
Wow.
Take advantage of these like trials too, because
They
they
trying
give
to
you the
keep you.
30-day, right? And then you're like, no thanks, and they're like, well, wait a minute, why? You're like, it's too much, or I don't need it right now. Well, hold on. What if we give it to you for blah blah blah? So yeah, and then also check some of the benefits with that, with your credit card, or even like T-Mobile. T-Mobile does all type of stuff. It's like T-Mobile Tuesday. And then with many of the credit card companies, they have like, if you're not going through just say the concierge, or just go and look in the app, like perks or benefits or something, like it's a bunch of things that I was going to pay for anyway, that I can get a little bit of a discount. So yeah.
Okay, check those perks. Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. Okay, so again, I restated everything that April shared with us, which is so valuable. And then April's going to be sharing more resources with us. And just one question before we start winding down.
Yeah.
Did you have to do things to increase your income as well, or were all these tips what helped you pay off?
No. Okay, I left that part out. Okay.
Okay.
So now it depends on, because again, coming from a former like workaholic, not in the colloquial sense of the word, like I use work as a coping mechanism. Again, the avoidance. you have to be very careful if you know that's you. Again, self-awareness is key. I say that a lot. Self-awareness,
Sure.
self-awareness. You do need an influx of cash. So whether that is you sell some things, whether it's you stop paying for some of those things, whether you get you a side hustle or, just look at your expenses because
Mhm.
you may be able to divert more than you think. If you're avoiding and you don't know what's coming in, what's coming out, you may
Mhm.
be able to pay things off a lot faster. But in
Mhm.
my case, I said was, my dad, like I said, was six figures. So
Mhm.
I said, well, what makes more sense? If I go back to corporate
Mhm.
in the, consulting space, but if I go back to corporate or if I'm still working with like small business owners.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm like, I got to get that money. But as you know, because we had a celebration
Yes. Yes. You went
last
back
year
to
on my
corporate
birthday.
temporarily because
Right.
you had a goal in mind. And so I
Right.
want Black women to hear this.
Yes.
Sometimes it might mean having a job or going back into a job, not toxic, not toxic,
No,
not
no,
toxic, right?
no,
Going
no.
into a situation that might be a bridge situation to help you get into your goal. So it
Yes.
might be a higher paying situation to
Mm-hmm.
put a whole bunch of money to pay off the debt and then leave that job. You
Yep.
don't stay at that job because
Mm-hmm.
April left that job. She
Yeah.
left
You
that
gotta
corporate
go.
job.
Gotta go.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you know
Okay.
what? This version of me
Mhm,
showed up.
mhm.
Like wild hair. Just like,
In Mexico, got
yeah,
a
like,
house, got a condo, got a private chef, living your best life, taking
right.
classes like you talked
Yeah.
about. You're taking all these classes, and you're
Yes.
able to just live the life that you
Mm-hmm.
deserve and that you want.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, women, Black women, I hope that you were able to listen. Again, I took my notes, okay, and I share my notes with you. So, if you want to go back and just like watch this video and pause and take your own notes, that might be helpful. So, again, the other part what we just talked about too was maybe getting another job or a side hustle or
Mm-hmm.
transition to another job that's maybe high paying and
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how you can have that influx of cash
Right.
and putting that on your debt to kind of pay that debt off faster.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Anything that we left off, April, about the
No,
debt?
no, but I do want to remind everyone, like we have to give ourselves grace.
Yes.
And don't, I'm telling you, like the coulda, woulda, shouldas, okay? It'll jump up on you before you know
Yeah.
it. Like don't live in that space. And if you do find yourself doing that, it's okay. Listen to it. Give it, like I'm real big on time periods. Like, okay, I'm gonna give it till, like 5:28. And I'm gonna be over here. I might cry. I might be, and then I'm done.
Mm,
Like it becomes that the more you do it, it's muscle memory, the easier it becomes. But
yeah.
show yourself some grace.
Mhm.
Again, this is not your financial situation, your job situation, your interpersonal relationship situations. They, regardless of what we've been told, they do not define our worth. They
Yes.
don't. They are not who we are. It is a
Yeah.
part of like what we have going on in our lives. So just continue to give yourself grace,
Mhm.
get in community. One thing's for certain, two things are for sure. I'm gonna tell you to get some professional help, okay? Like there is nothing like going to a licensed mental health professional, but also get in community. And
Yeah.
even just the people that are watching this, like you're not alone.
Mhm.
And it took 2 years for me to make this video,
Mm.
over 2 years for me to make this video and be before you confidently saying this because of my prior relationship with money and how
Mhm.
I was, raised to view and feel about money. So give
Yeah.
yourself some grace. It's okay.
I love how you said that.
Mhm.
Give yourself some grace. I see a comment in the chat. So glad I'm here live. All of my student loans now come from my 2017, I think, Master in Divinity degree, $140,000. When I started my PhD in, I guess, 2019, I started paying it down. I'm now at $40,000 and on track to pay it off this December.
What? Oh
Yes,
my goodness.
I
We got
love
to
it.
give a hand clap of praise for that one.
Yes, that is
What?
fabulous.
Oh my
Congratulations.
goodness.
Congratulations.
Whoa.
Because once that debt is like released a little bit, you feel such a
Yes.
sense of like, oh my God,
Lighter. You feel lighter.
I did it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I see Marissa. Hey, Marissa.
Hey,
Thank you for joining
Marissa.
us. So, listen, again, this was a gold mine with Pearl sharing openly sharing about ways that she got out. And she's sharing this with us in the hopes that we can take this information and help liberate ourselves, because there's so much shame associated with money and then the money relationships. So we need to address the mindset issues that keep us stuck, just like the mindset issues that keep us stuck at a toxic job. So it's a perfect segue as we are winding down. We're going to kind of shut down this live with showing the video about the second annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. Job liberation is right around the corner, okay? So think about this. When I talk about job liberation, it's not just from a toxic job. It can be from jobs you've outgrown, or you may have been laid off from your job. Or I've heard from many Black women federal workers saying that the anticipation of what's going to happen. So the Job Liberation Virtual Summit is for all Black women, no matter what your degree, no matter what your job is, no matter where you are in the world. For us as Black women to plan and prepare to be ready to pivot and live the life that we want to live on our own terms and still make money. Okay. Because I don't want anybody watching this and saying, well, you just want us to just up and leave. That's not what I'm saying to you, sis. Okay. Unless you're in immediate danger, physically and or psychologically. You're about to have a nervous breakdown, girl, go. Okay.
Right.
But if that's not your circumstance, and if you're thinking this is not working for me, or I've already been laid off, what do I need to do to prepare myself to pivot and live a life where I'm still making money? The virtual summit has multiple sessions about different ways to replace your income, multiple streams of income. Stephanie Perry is in the audience. She is one of our speakers. Marissa is one of our speakers. I'm going to be doing Afroflow yoga with you all. So it's so much information. And also as a privacy consideration, none of the summit attendees will be seen on camera. Names will not be listed. If there's any questions or comments you want to make, you can change your name in the platform. Again, Prill is our MC again this year. We're so excited to have her back. And so I'm going to just share with you the commercial for the summit so you can register. It starts May 16th. So get your ticket before you forget. Like, oh, I meant to register. Girl, get your ticket now so you don't forget, for real, okay? So I'm going to show you the video, and then we're going to start winding down.
Are you a Black woman who is looking to make your pivot from a job that's not serving you?
What's happening to them is not the result of unconscious bias. That's a bunch of unconscious BS.
I didn't deserve any of it, and you don't either.
If you've ever been overlooked, boxed in, underpaid, or underestimated, or told to wait your turn,
the people that are working together to destroy your career know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, you can't heal in the environment that harmed you. You got to pick up your feet and leave.
We have been led to believe that we have to shrink ourselves to fit into systems that weren't built for us in the first place.
We know, unfortunately, as Black women, a lot of us experience many toxic work environments.
And it does more than just drain our energies. It actually challenges our very essence.
The Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women is for you.
It's Prill, and I am honored to return as your moderator for the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women.
Katrina Marie here, also known as the Boss Chick Biz Coach. I am here to resuscitate your life and your dreams.
Hey, it's Dr. O'Shea, the Dr. Rethinking.
This is Halisi. I am the co-founder of Our Black Utopia.
I am Kim with the Gems.
Last year, over 300 Black women gathered for what I can only call a moment.
In the session that I'll be facilitating with Liberation and Longevity, we're going to be ensuring wellness beyond the toxic workplace.
And I'm going to be talking about how to get your money right so you can leave that toxic job.
We went from negative 22,000 to over 1.1 billion in net worth. I will be talking to you about how you can get your financial act together.
How to maximize your income by leveraging your talent.
I'm Janice Sutherland, CEO of This Woman Can and career strategist for the mature Black woman.
I'm Giovanna Mae Reese, founder of The Hiatus Space, where I help ambitious women set boundaries, reclaim their energy, and live with clarity.
I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist of over 20 years. I'm also a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator, and I'm co-hosting with Marissa Price the second annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women.
Alicia Renice, and I am a multi-passionate and healing artist, as well as the founder of Black Girl Creative.
Rashni Cope, a certified life coach, helping Black and West Indian women create whole and healed lives that they love.
Pivot with power. Changing Careers When You're Over 50, a session designed specifically for Black women over 50 who are ready to reinvent their careers on their terms.
My session, Reclaim Your Breath, a stress relief toolkit for Black women, I am going to teach you how to take that instinctive sigh and turn it into a daily practice.
Afroflow yoga is a mix between African dance and yoga. There's so many things in this world that try to dim our light, and we're going to be doing Afroflow yoga in ways that protect our light and cultivates our light and really supports our healing.
I want to really dive into how we can recover our creativity, how we can even recover some of our dreams.
Vision Your Liberation will help you reconnect with the woman who is already free.
Hi, my name is Rashida Dow. I am a career break coach.
Anne-Marie of the Anti-HR Consultancy and the Anti-HR channel on YouTube.
Jasmine Williams-Jacobs, founder and director of Black Remote She, which is a community-driven job platform for Black, queer, trans, non-binary people and allies interested in working remotely.
I'm Patrice Williams-Lindo, CEO of Career Nomad and the creator of the RNA Method.
I'm Rashida James. I'm a senior career consultant at Black on the Job.
I'm going to tell you how to separate who you are from what you do.
How to turn that discriminatory hostile work environment into the cash and the check that allows you to pursue your freedom.
We'll talk through some of the ways that you can identify workplaces that are having those centered policies that center anti-oppressive principles.
Rebrand and rise. Building your personal brand for a bold career pivot.
Skills pay the bills because your knowledge, skills, and abilities, they're your currency. And it's time to make sure they are paying what you're really worth.
I'm Jackie Abram, international best-selling and award-winning author, the global toxic workplace consultant, employee advocate, helping Black women all around the world fight the discrimination they're experiencing.
I am Krishan Wright, the founder and chief freedom advocate at Blacksa Global and the host of the Blacksa Global podcast.
I'm Coach Yolanda, certified spiritual life coach and founder of the Evolved Community, an online sanctuary for Black women who are looking to do soul work.
I'm Marissa Price. I am a social worker helping Black women heal from highly traumatic workplace environments and reclaim their self-worth and authenticity.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Perry. I am the co-founder, co-creator of Exodus Summit and Exodus ASAP.
The warning signs that you need to know that lead to termination.
Passport to prosperity, how to make money anywhere.
I am pleased to join you to make sure that your minds are liberated.
How to take your power back, how to reclaim your skill set, rebuild your self-worth.
Black women, while you're working on these liberation practices, go ahead and quit that job too.
I was able to say goodbye to corporate America 20 years before they told me that I should be able.
It's never too late. It is never too late.
You're not lost. We are here. Break free from those golden handcuffs, honey.
Reclaim your value.
If you have a desire for it, there's already a version of you that hasn't.
It's not about starting over. It's about starting wiser.
It's not simply an event. It is a sanctuary, a movement.
Community is waiting for you. New opportunities are waiting for you. A new horizon is waiting for you.
It is your time to shine.
Your liberation is not just possible, it's divine. And it's waiting on you.
If you would like to attend completely anonymously, that is your right to do so. We look forward to you joining us at the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, May 16th through 18th. Register now.
And I hope I see you turning in that letter of resignation. Or girl, just leave, right?
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you to all our brilliant lineup of Black women speakers. And like Marissa said, it's the brilliance for me. Still so many brilliant Black women sharing with you, pouring information into you to help you, right? That always gets me. Yes, I love seeing that video. And just remember, we've talked about this before, we heal in community. So the summit is a way for us to heal in community, for you to get information and to help you pivot and power. So as we're winding down, I also want to share Prill's YouTube channel. So please check out her YouTube channel, subscribe, and share this video with other Black women, because we need mental liberation. We need economic liberation. We need liberation on all these different levels. Okay. We need to be well during this time. Our wellness is our resistance. We need to remember that. We need to be mindful of any environment, any situation that harms us or dims our light. We need to be aware of that and be ready to pivot to other situations, because we don't have to live this way. We don't. We deserve better than that. So, Pearl, I'm going to give you the last words and we're going to wind down for today.
So listen, first of all, Dr. Kamani, it's always a pleasure. Yes, so my channel's Positively Prill. If you are watching this from the future, hey, then go ahead and look at the link in the bio. It'll be a link to the tracker. And if you want to subscribe to my email list, perfect, because I'm going to be sending that tracker out probably early next week. And yeah, just continue to give yourself grace, because remember, you are an absolutely amazing Black woman.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And you see how she's radiating joy? She's radiating joy because she's living life on her own terms. She had a goal in mind to get this financial burden off, cleared 100,000. Now she's living a different life. So even if you don't want to leave the country, still having that level of financial freedom is liberating. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're trying to share with you all resources related to the liberation of other Black women. So everyone, thank you so much for watching today. Give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube knows to suggest this video to other Black women. Subscribe to Prill's channel, subscribe to my channel. They're free. It's all free. Okay.
Yes.
And I see what Marissa said. Yes. What did she say? She said, you're teasing. Yes, because your energy is everything. It is. So come to the summit. And let me say too, the summit is a lot of information, but it's fun too.
Yeah.
Like the way, like the chat is lighting up. We had one of the summit participant attendees from last year. Marissa and I interviewed her yesterday, and she talked about Prill, which I didn't know. She said she actually formed community from the summit.
I
so
love
in
that.
the chat, she found other Black women, and now they are regularly meeting, uplifting. So she formed her own community. So community is so important. Again, we heal in community. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Again, share this video with at least 2 other Black women. And I will see you later, everyone. Take care. Stay home. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.